Okay, so we're back for round two, and this is the second take. I got into the testing and then second opinion scans and everything hard locked. So we've got 15 samples, some being Microsoft Office documents with malicious payloads to be pulled down. When I did Defender scan of the 15, only one was detected. This 055 Charlie Word document. So what we're going to do is we're going to kick off and we're going to let that do its scan and see what Defender, again, would detect. It did pick up the VBA and then stripped it. And before we go through and do that, I might want to turn AppGuard back on. Alright, so here we go. Defense is back up. Defender is still scanning in the background. And we're just going to go through. And I'm just going to try to launch the first three. And put the first two. Hope that we can't find anything. There's the complaints. So it's got the first two. First three. The Excel document. And we'll kick off the next application. So it stopped the app file. And then we just have to wait for Excel to catch up. Maybe. Oh yeah, she's thinking about it in the background. The first rendition, I had to adjust the anti-malware detections on the host VM or host system, as it was basically did not like the prospect of reaching out to random IP addresses and pulling down like VPS files. That should be adjusted so we don't have to go through and do that this time. Yep, and after 24-ish hours, that has not changed. It still picked up the 055 Charlie Excel file. So Defender's not going to save you on this one. And there we go. IE underscore nets.hta was prevented from launching. So we get the general outline. So that's for the Excel document. So just keep working down the chain. We got a second document, the one that Defender would have picked up. And there we go. VPS was stopped from executing. Yep, this Windows script host complaining. It's like, well, no duh. So 29055 gives us what? Just a blank spreadsheet? And at least the 29F alpha, so Frank Alpha Delta, gives us this fake document is protected. So we're going to move on to the Word docs. I'll fire off those two and we'll see. So effectively, I will spoil this. So AppGuard solo blocks all of it. Giant shocker, I know, if you've observed the first 48 attempts. What makes us think the last 15 are going to be any different? It prevents the firing of the payloads. Now, Office will still be exploited to go out and reach out to some third-party source to pull down a VPS file, a HTA file, whatever the case is, and basically kick it off from there. And one of these uses the equation editor to do everything. I think it's near the bottom or near the end of it. But effectively, it does the needful. It stops when it needs to stop and prevents access. Now, on the flip side, something that wasn't covered because I was doing the testing off of all executables. This still leaves the VBS files, the HTA file, everything else like that, in either temp folder or like app data roaming, something through there. Which obviously poses a problem, granted as long as the AppGuard is never taken into a lower portion besides protected. It's not so much of an issue. Execution will be prevented every single time, which is great. Though hopefully in this particular aspect, I mean, the Windows firewall is turned off, and I am just basically punting this straight out of VPN pipe. So there's no DNS security and the rest that you would effectively do for a defense in depth. Hopefully, if this would be something that you would be looking at putting on. Matter of fact, I could think of a couple of organizations that their HR, this would be a godsend to them, probably, because they had to open everything that they were sent. And I remember a time that we were replacing, or not replacing, but nuke and paving workstations on a regular basis in HR. So Tony Special was kicked. Okay, got the extra. Mind you, before somebody accuses me of picking my nose. So this is 2 weaponized Word documents. This looks insanely familiar. I think a few of these Word documents end up popping this thing out. And then hopefully everybody will just believe me when I tell them that the Kaspersky and EXEs scans all came back picking up the payloads that are dumped on the workstation, the file system, that just were prevented from executing. So it's kind of like, what? You dig up a landmine, but then you put it in a explosive-proof container, effectively? Sure, it's still there. It's still potentially harmful. I mean, you could open up the metaphorical bomb-proof box and you could poke it with a stick. The contents, it wouldn't be recommended, but so some sort of cleanup of temp files and the like would probably be something that you'd be looking at going through and doing on a semi-regular basis, just to clean the crap out. Or hopefully it just give you enough time that your AV platform of choice on the workstation to catch up, realize, hey, these things are bad, and we're just gonna nuke it, or quarantine it, whatever the case is. Alright, so the extra ones are closed out. So that's 7.6 with a bunch of random data, and I believe that we have another one. 798 Frank Alpha. Maybe opening up, or is it just, yeah, I'm assuming that's where the starting's coming from. So I guess while we wait, let's try kicking off another application. The telephone call. Always telephone call. And another block. To the shock and amazement of nobody, I'm sure, by this particular point. Fire off a VBS. I really do need to see about trying to turn down either that or just getting these particular workstations moved over to my higher end computer. So there is the VBS file and the typical block from preventing from loading script and the like. Kick off another one. 4.7s. This is okay, so we are up to date then. We got another one. So I'm gonna close 7.6. Charlie 2. And we're gonna go ahead and launch 7.9.8. Kick that one off, and then we'll do the last JS file. And then we've just got the last two Word documents. Okay, so there's the JavaScript file in question being prevented from executing again. Now I'm effectively just waiting on that 7.9.8 Word doc to kick off before I can kick off the last two Word docs, and then we'll have our final 15. Okay, so apparently it is still trying to actually kick off and run. Which makes me wonder whether or not maybe the infrastructure hosting the VBS file is gone, down, maybe. I have not gotten any notifications on the host AV system about any sort of problems. So I guess let's just do this. Kill process. Kill process. Gone, gone, gone. We go back. And okay, here we go. Round 2. It's opened. I think the infrastructure's down. The particular payload in question for this. No, hopefully you will just give me the benefit of the doubt on this. Unfortunately, this is the second time, like I said, that I've been doing this. But everything did have a valid payload that was pulled down eventually and attempted execution, and that attempted execution was blocked by AppGuard Solo. And then the CAV, and like I said, the set scans all came back as it picked up the actual payloads on disk in the temp folders, or I think it was app data roaming for most of them. So but we will let this go through. We'll get the last two Word documents opened. Hopefully the infrastructure is still in place to be able to pull down the files, and you have additional portion that even with poison documents, sure, may download the payload onto the workstation, but execution is prevented. Arguably, I'd prefer to sit there and get it at the network level, if at all possible, and have that stuff stopped. But depending as to where you've got everything. Though, I think this is basically the full thing. I believe is marketed more towards like government and financial. I mean, when I was working at the bank, I would have killed for this. And why we never ended up going this route at a certain Fortune 500 I worked at, I don't know. I'm fairly certain I mentioned it. We did a test of this for a proof of concept, and I mean, this is several years ago. Put it on an isolated system with uh, with an internet connection that was just basically piped out, or maybe no internet connection. But the whole thing was okay. Give us the executables. We'll turn off the AV on the box itself, and we'll execute everything you guys submit to us. I don't think it was Malware Bazaar at the time. I think I actually had to go through hunting. I think I found a list of like a current curated, excuse me, list of like 50 URLs for like the most dangerous stuff that had been detected that day. So, I mean, we're talking stuff that at a particular point was like hours old. Basically just ran it through and hit 100% across the board, much like what we're dealing with now. The round one, it was 50 samples, 2 of which were incompatible. So obviously did not run. And here we've got all 15 that are compatible, but apparently at least one that's the payload has actually been taken down by the looks of it. Here we go, another detection for app data roaming for another VBS file from this Word document. Blocked. And then a bunch of generic data. And I'm willing to bet that if I go through and tell it to open the last Word document, because I think these last ones were Agent Tesla samples. The Word docs themselves were not Agent Tesla, but they were either, they turned malicious to go through, pull down an Agent Tesla payload. I think they'll both come back to the same. Well, technically, I guess it would be, no, this way. No. No. I gotta go this way, but I've got to bring it well within frame. There. I think that. There we go. Executable prevented from being launched, again from app data roaming. So we'll probably want to go through and I will run disk cleanup to see as to whether or not that will nuke everything out. And then I think I'll just jump straight to the Hitman Pro aspect. Okay, so I pulled up app data roaming. We got our VBS, we got our Tony special, our wealth IOL, another VBS, Miel Whores. What's in Miel Whores? Oh, HXD. But I guess this is why it's nice to have logs too. So where was the HTA in question? Local temp. So it would be the other section we'll have to take a look at. So what we're going to do is we're just going to grab these. I want to go through and dump them into VT to basically see what the stuff would come out, but it's going to take forever probably to go through. But let's see. Okay, so there is for our VBS, the SBXRTST.VBS. Okay, so here's what we got. The SBXRTST.VBS 14 out of 51. Granted, this is a day ago. Our Tony Special 36 out of 71. Snake Logger. Our Wealth IOL is again another Snake Logger. And our YHFEGDOFO.VBS Trojan 15 out of 59. And then if we back out to app data local temp, we have our IE underscore nets.hta, which was blocked and dumped into virus total. We get 5 out of 59. So we're talking about things that even still reasonably close to 24 hours later have very little detections for AV engines, whereas AppGuard just knocked them dead, metaphorically. Like I said, payloads are still left on the system. But so we've got all this stuff. I will go through. I'm going to clean up the temp folders, everything else like that. scan the system again with cav, ESET. Actually, I know all it's going to do is just basically pick up on the same particular aspects anyways. So, screw it. It's the completionist in me. Okay, Hitman Pro Scan found evidence of some executables left over in the internet cache. So, nuked that stuff, and we're just gonna go on to Kaspersky, and then I'll kick off ESET. But if this plays out exactly the same, which I can't imagine that it would be any different this time around, effectively, it's not gonna find anything outside of the Dieter Stevens, or anything else like that. But I will let it go. But I'm going to basically just I'll let this go and ESET, but out of an abundance of concern of another potential hard lock for the amount of time it takes for the scans to complete, I'm going to effectively end the video, and I will just add it to the description if anything else shakes out in regards to this. So effectively, what we've had is another 15 to basically summarize everything. Files run through AppGuard. The executables, VBS files, JavaScript files, all that were blocked immediately. The Word and Excel files were allowed to proceed to open and go through and actually trigger off the exploits, payloads, whatever's in there, and pull down the secondary payloads, which were then immediately blocked. So effectively, the only detections we've had is, yes, for the payloads that were pulled down from the internet, but effectively all those executions were blocked, which is ultimately how we're rating this is, can the bad stuff be stopped from being run? Sure, it may sit on the system, but if you can't execute it, I mean, granted, okay, yes, perfect world, it would just completely destroy the files. But it's prevention, not outright eradication. Nothing wrong with that, though. So that's another aspect to consider. So if you've liked what you see in regards to this, I would highly suggest you go and reach out to AppGuard and see as to whether or not, if if you like what you see in regards to everything else, and you want to see about getting it deployed on home network or something more to that fact, by all means. I mean, out of all the things here, I may actually want to see as to whether or not what would happen if once Kiddo gets the Windows machine, put this on there and see that along with Windows Defender, do I end up getting engaged from the immediate family of, hey, I was trying to play this Minecraft mod and all of a sudden my box crashed or something along those lines, see as to whether or not that would stop that. But I gotta say, from a business perspective, I like the fact of 1 year, and with US sales tax, about $95, sub 100. I mean, for what you get, I have a hard time really finding any sort of fault with that. Granted, I could get, Kaspersky or Bitdefender or something else like that on several boxes for sub $95. But I would honestly be extremely interested to see as to what would happen. To basically do this test with the same exact files and run them through. Although I guess technically, if I reloaded the results from yesterday, I probably would get a better idea as to how that stuff would sit. But, I mean, effectively, I just don't have any real negatives to sit there and say about it. Extremely lightweight. I know you don't generally get that impression, but given the fact, I'm basically doing all this stuff on a older laptop. It's not the higher end system that I've got sitting literally just, well, it's kind of flipped, but effectively over my left shoulder. But I mean, you gotta remember, it's a fully loaded Windows image that's now virtualizing a fully loaded Windows image and then just that. So it's like 4 gigs of RAM, I think, on the VM and 2 processors. So everything, and of course, OBS is the other big thing. Basically recording at 1080p. So, but no, strictly to this, I gotta say, I I could think of wasteful ways of spending the $95, but as this sits, I mean, this is one hell of a peace of mind for me. Um, I mean, the next portion will be basically take it onto the gaming laptop, pop that in there, and then see as to whether or not if normal operations like through Steam or anything else like that, if anything's interrupted there, or as to whether or not if I found a lightweight solution for minimal impact but maximum protection at the same time. And I mean, realistically, I gotta say, I like the aspect that you could set it, and good luck for anything getting through, regardless as to whether or not if you're in a drunken state or inebriated in some sort of other fashion. Obviously, it does nothing for phishing, but that's not what it was originally designed for, anyways. So hopefully, by that portion, you would have, your own end user awareness training. You would have maybe DNS security put in place. You would have a full-fledged AV platform that would be sitting there checking requests. I mean, yeah, I got nothing bad to say. So I would highly suggest everybody go take a look if you haven't already. Again, this is not sponsored or anything else like that. I took my own money that I earn from the incident responder role and applied it to this. And if we ever reach a particular aspect of, um, we find a weakness that I can actually roll this out into anything, I am definitely not going to hesitate to make the recommendation. Um, if you've got a small, medium business or you got somebody with that and you're looking for a tool to throw on there to try to resolve, anything, I mean, I think I would probably take this over, some other AV platform. I don't know what it costs to get, CrowdStrike Falcon or Sentinel-1 or Cyber Reason or any of the, next gen AVs dumped onto a box, like how much it would cost per, but for some $100 for this and have effectively peace of mind, I mean, okay, sure, you go into SMB environment, or yeah, SMB environment, and okay, sure, maybe that shoots up to 150, $200, but effectively, if it's a centrally managed platform to be able to control the rules and be able to sit there and deploy changes, everything else like that, okay. I mean, but this is all just self-contained. I would love to get my hands though on Terminator and see as to whether or not if that has any idea about AppGuard. But I'm not gonna go and that was like $3,000, maybe. Maybe it was 650, something like that. It was more than what I really want to spend on a metaphorical experiment with like this to see as to whether or not if AppGuard would sit there and stop any of that stuff. But the other aspect would be too, I think there was a proof of concept that was put out using the GMER driver to go through suspend processes and stuff like that, that I just came across on LinkedIn today. So maybe I'll sit there and I'll grab some of the APT stuff from VX Underground, and we'll do that as a round 3 probably. And then if I can figure out exactly what I need to do to go through and try to do the same thing with this blackout aspect, using the gmer.sys file to potentially stop the stuff, I've got interest. I would like to see as to whether or not, if okay, short of telling the end user to open up the interface and disable it, can any of this stuff actually, work against AppGuard, or does AppGuard have defenses in place to stop its threads being paused, everything else like that? Although I might be able to do the same exact thing with like Process Explorer running as admin, and then basically just pause um, what's visible for AppGuard, and then see if I can get some garbage to fire off. But we'll save that as like a round 3 or 4. I've got to get all the stuff uploaded. But so there we go. AppGuard Solo, round 2, complete success.